Thanksgiving, a day for generosity and appreciation that is most revered for marking the last day anyone needs to feel guilty over putting their Christmas decorations up early, and currently in the process of being eaten by the manufactured consumer holiday dedicated to a bargain hunting blood sport. Believe it or not, once we did actually care about this holiday enough to make a handful of animation specials for it, and now Black Friday is trying to assimilate that as well. But it's also mildly understandable. Aside from lacking any of the creatively interpreted mythologies, how many times do we really need to see the history of the Mayflower? How many times will someone try to save a single turkey from getting killed while not caring about the millions being processed in a factory? And how many times can we see Thanksgiving dinner get ruined only for everyone to learn the true meaning was family all along? Well, turns out a lot. Because just like the holiday, even if they aren't the most hypeable, when that time of year comes, we enjoy them, which is why we're gonna give them their dedication now. This is my top 13 animations for Thanksgiving. Intergalactic Thanksgiving, or Please Don't Eat the Planet. Well, this is something that exists. I'm sure you guys are familiar with at least some of the products from this particular Canadian production studio. When Nelvana first started in the 1970s, their first project was a series of very impressive holiday specials, including Cosmic Christmas Special with Wise Men That Came From Space, The Devil and Danielle Mouse, which is really good. They also did a small segment for some obscure special called the Star Wars Holiday, and this one is interesting. It features a group of space Oregon Trail settlers singing a very nice song, I might add. One particular family makes their home on a new planet and stirs up some tensions with the natives. Yes, the Mayflower analog is not lost, but this is why it's weird. See, on this planet, positions of authority are apparently determined by who is the funniest. And when the new settlers come, the natives think everything they do is so bizarre that everyone thinks they're the funniest thing ever. It makes the current king so angry he makes a blatant Disney reference. Also, his unfunny son starts dating the settler's daughter. I'd make a snide, uncomfortable comment about that, but it's actually the one thing in the special that makes the most sense. Because after that, we meet the super strong insects that are trying to fix the damage being done to the planet or something, I don't really know. It's fascinatingly bizarre, while at the same time being told completely straight. Though it is kinda ironic how for a society where the authoritative power is determined by your sense of humor, that nobody has any sense of comedic timing. I thought at first it was because the animation was too natural and evenly timed to be funny, but that also could have been intentional, because if this guy is the king, no wonder they thought these settlers were so funny. So if you want to check something out that's old school, ridiculous, and impressively animated, check this out. Teacher's Pet, The Turkey That Came to Dinner. Here's a lesser-known Disney series that I really enjoyed as a kid. A dog named Spot decides he no longer wants to be a dog and starts impersonating a regular kid named Scott, palling around with his owner Leonard. Apparently in this universe, all animals can talk, but in front of humans, they just don't for some reason. It's not an amazing series by any stretch, but it is pretty excellently performed, especially by the star, Timon's own Nathan Lane. The animation's fluid with an interesting design, and the show has a lovable, amusing sense of humor, which is so unusual for a cartoon show, I know. In their Thanksgiving episode, Scott is looking forward to his first Thanksgiving as a boy, but has to be out on the porch while Leonard's allergic grandma comes to visit. Also, the grandma brings over a live turkey for the mother to cook. The overarching story about saving the turkey doesn't rock the boat or anything, and some of the jokes don't really work, but Spot is a really fun, over-the-top character, and I like the way he dramatizes the mundane. And I really buy the bond that he has with Leonard, but this show is not as good at writing songs as it thinks it is. This episode is also on the list for personal reasons in that it's the only Thanksgiving special that showcases one of my long-running Thanksgiving traditions, playing video games. Yeah, it's one of those 90s video games will steal your soul messages. Still, this is how I spent every Thanksgiving all the way through college. Thanks, Teacher's Pet.
I'm sorry, Scott. It's just this game. It's like I can't stop.
Right. It's the game's fault. This must be some game.
Catch the blob. Ha, ha.
There was a little glare on the TV screen. I'll get it this time.
No, you don't get a pass just for being a classic. I have no nostalgic connection to the Peanuts, but I do concede that I understand why these characters have become iconic. They have a lot of personality, and I appreciate that Charlie Brown is someone who will do his best even though the odds are always against him. But it's hard to find that much likable in a story where someone invites themselves over to someone else's house without consent, that person tries to accommodate them anyway, and only gets berated for it. The only thing I've ever thought coming away from this special is, Peppermint Patty's a weeotch. Snoopy easily saves this special, and the animation is still charming and interesting. Still, I prefer the This Is America Charlie Brown history of the Mayflower, even if I don't believe that the reason to celebrate Thanksgiving should be for its historical significance anymore.
Thanksgiving isn't about blending of two cultures, it's about one culture wiping out another. And then they make animated specials about the part where with the maize and the big belt buckles, they don't show you the next scene where all the bison die and then Squanto takes a musket ball in the stomach.
All that said, I do still like this as a work of animation. The actual Pilgrim and Mayflower focus is still informative. Its presentation is just so gosh darn quaint and charming. I like how they integrate the characters, and they don't even shy away from all the death. It's certainly the best of those sorts of history specials, and both are still reasonably entertaining in their own right. You still don't get a pass just for being a classic, though. The Garfield Thanksgiving Special. Like the Charlie Brown special, the plot to Garfield is not exceptionally great. John annoys the vet Liz into having Thanksgiving dinner with him. He lazies his way through Thanksgiving dinner, which of course fails. He gets his grandma to solve his problems for him, all while he's being a terrible host. Yeah, there's a reason why this one is in the back. However, while the overarching plot is less than great, the individual moments still make this special very enjoyable. The animation, the jokes, and Garfield himself are all really good. It's actually a pretty funny special, especially when Garfield is told he has to go on a diet at Thanksgiving. Not to mention that John's grandma is amazing.
Oh, you're looking a little thin. Isn't that grandson of mine feeding you?
Grandma, I love you. Don't ever leave us.
Certainly some flaws, but still a very entertaining special.
Family Thanksgiving!
Dan versus the Family Thanksgiving. When a central character is predominantly defined as being a massive jerk, there's a couple ways a show can make that work. The character either has to get regular comeuppance for their actions, they're revealed to have a secret tender heart, even if it only surfaces in limited situations, they use their jerk powers to get rid of even bigger jerks, or their antics are so over the top that they're hilarious. And Dan versus really only works about half the time. He certainly doesn't get his deserving retribution nearly often enough, so I can't wholeheartedly recommend the series, and while I'm certainly never one to accommodate an angry man-child, I do enjoy it when it works. And Dan vs. Thanksgiving is one of the better examples. Dan is invited to a niece's parents for Thanksgiving, who on several previous occasions Dan has nearly killed. But when he arrives, they are welcoming, kind, and even affectionate. Naturally, this confuses everyone, but when presented with unconditional kindness, Dan himself starts acting downright pleasant. But of course it's revealed that Anissa's parents did indeed have their own selfish agenda, and when the cover is blown, everything runs downhill from there. The Thanksgiving setting may be inessential for this episode, and I certainly don't blame anyone for thinking that this is still a little too mean-spirited, but it's nice seeing Dan being nice for a change. Plus it's a bit of a twisted departure from the cliche of Thanksgiving, a time for family and forgiveness. Nope, apparently not. A Winnie the Pooh Thanksgiving. Pooh and the gang get together for Thanksgiving, bringing all their personal favorite foods like acorns and biscuits, ice cream, and of course honey. But ever the ray of sunshine, Rabbit tells them that those are all the wrong food for Thanksgiving and instructs them what they need to do Thanksgiving properly, which of course all goes horribly wrong. The end result is pretty predictable, but it's Winnie the Pooh, and that alone makes it at the very least adorable. The animation is gorgeous, and the characters are lovable and funny. But I also have an additional mention. See, this special was released on a VHS named The Season of Giving, where it's presented as one of 3 episodes tied together with a hasty framing device about getting ready for Christmas. You'd think, considering that, the Christmas Winnie the Pooh episode would be on here, but apparently that's in a different video release. Instead we get the Groundhog Day episode. I think because Thanksgiving is mentioned at the very end, but the 3rd third episode is the one that introduces Kessie the Bluebird, and oh my deities, if you have not seen this, I hope you have a mop nearby to mop up the pieces of your bleeding heart when it shatters all over the floor. Rabbit adopts a baby bird named Kessie, of course reluctantly and spitefully at first, but resists Kessie learning to fly, at first for safety, but then because he doesn't want her to fly south for the winter and leave him. See, this is how you do this correctly. You can find this episode in numerous places online, and I assure you, this episode is an emotional minefield. I don't know why it's in this special, and I don't care, because it's amazing. Plus, it's a story that encompasses an entire year, so technically it's appropriate for any season. So by all means, check it out. And also the Thanksgiving episode, I guess. The Simpsons, Bart vs. Thanksgiving. 27 seasons, still only really one Thanksgiving episode. I'm not someone who would insist that the early Simpsons episodes were flawless or that the newer episodes are garbage, but I can concede that the earlier episodes did have a shred more of a genuine family feeling. Maybe this was just before Homer had to ask forgiveness for the 100th time.
This is the worst thing you've ever done.
You say that so much it's lost all meaning.
Bart ruins Lisa's elaborate centerpiece, and Marge declare that he has ruined Thanksgiving. Really? That's all it took? Dinner's fine, and he clearly wasn't interrupting any tender family moments. Still, determined to play victim and not apologize, he runs off to mess around at a homeless shelter. You know, for once, this feels like Bart being a relatively normal child acting out, rather than a sociopathic deviant. And the episode really takes the time to examine his mindset into why he refuses to apologize. This episode feels refreshingly honest and realistic compared to a lot of the other Simpsons, with a genuinely sweet ending, all with its classic sense of humor.
If you start building a balloon for every flash-in-the-pan cartoon character, you'll turn the parade into a farce.
South Park, Helen Keller the Musical, and a History Channel Thanksgiving. I've always been a little hit and miss when it comes to South Park, but the fact that it's kept more likable characters and moral integrity than Family Guy, that's just sad. In Helen Keller the Musical, because this class's Thanksgiving play has to be about the miracle worker, the class wants the play to be the best play possible by getting a turkey that can do tricks. Timmy goes out and finds a special turkey that he bonds with instantly, but the class wants to use a world-famous turkey willing to do a 4th grade play, okay? This episode is surprisingly adorable, you know, by South Park standards. Then a History Channel Thanksgiving decides to reenact the movie Thor with the Pilgrims and the Indians as aliens, at the same time mocking conspiracy theory documentaries and how historically accurate the History Channel has gotten. Both of these specials are funny and fun deviations from the Thanksgiving norm. The Red vs. Blue Thanksgiving PSAs. Yeah, they're only 3 minutes long, and Red vs. Blue may only loosely be defined as animation, but the recent seasons have utilized some really impressive motion capture. Starting as just a quippy comedy web series, Red vs. Blue is still going, having reached 13 seasons and grown its story into an effective action comedy drama with some really great characters. The first Thanksgiving PSA came out over a decade ago, starting with a little bit of political mockery about the red and blue states. Because it's in the title, haha. That somehow leads to them talking about turduckens. The second one is a lot more Thanksgiving-centric and a lot more funny.
Using the power of the internet, I was able to read a bunch of historical documents on the holiday, which for some reason were all authored by 1st graders and accompanied by drawings of their favorite Thanksgiving Day food. Severed human hands that had been colored and dressed to look like birds. What?
They're really short, so I don't want to give too much away. I love you forever, Red vs. Blue. Arnold's Thanksgiving. Full disclosure, guys, if there was a single animated series that dominated my tween years, it was Hey Arnold. Cartoons in the West are all expected to be comedies, and technically Hey Arnold still is, but it's also the closest a young cartoon ever got to a soap opera. Helga Pataki is still my favorite female cartoon character of all time. Or at least tied with Toph. In Arnold's Thanksgiving, both Arnold and Helga are frustrated that they don't have a, quote, traditional Thanksgiving. Oh dear God, Arnold himself actually has a conflict for a change. He's annoyed that his grandmother thinks that it's the 4th of July, so the boarding house always does 4th of July traditions instead. Okay, that actually might be the weakest conflict anyone's ever had in a Thanksgiving special. Complaining that their grandmother has dementia. And Helga is tired of being neglected by her father, her mother being a coded alcoholic, and her sister overshadowing her with her perfection. So really it's just like any other day, only today it's Thanksgiving. Like I said, soap opera. The two decide that to find a perfect Thanksgiving, they should visit their teacher, Mr. Simmons' place, because he featured a, quote, perfect Thanksgiving in their school play, only to find that his own family makes Helga's seem warm and fuzzy. Arnold and Helga learn to appreciate the family that they have, and holy deities, Helga's family actually gave a crap that she was gone. That alone is worthy of note. The premise is simple, but Hey Arnold has always been able to sell that emotional sincerity. It's a refreshingly somber but still sweet Thanksgiving episode. And are you seriously considering relaunching the Jungle movie? Do not toy with me on this. Bob's Burgers, Turkey in a Can, and Dawn of the Peck. Out of all the older-oriented cartoons, Bob's Burgers is the one that really owns Thanksgiving. Naturally, because it's Bob's favorite holiday because of how much he loves cooking turkeys. In Turkey in a Can, Bob's lovingly basted turkeys are somehow overnight ending up in the can. Every day he goes out and buys a new turkey from the grocery store clerk that starts hitting on him, but every night it's the same thing, slowly driving Bob mental. The mystery of why this is happening may not be entirely unguessable, but the reason behind it is actually very cute, and it's just a damn funny episode.
They work together to frame me because I have been slowly stealing their allowances over the last 5 years.
Wait, you have?
Yes. Wait, you guys didn't know that?
No.
Oh, never mind, because I haven't been.
Oh, good.
And Dawn of the Peck is a pretty blatant homage to Dawn of the Dead with a pack of wild turkeys. And it's just as ridiculous and hilarious as that sounds. Even more so as Bob is slowly going into a denial depression about not being able to cook Thanksgiving dinner that year. Bob's Burgers has easily become my new favorite animation for Sunday nights, mostly thanks to those kids. And these episodes are great demonstrations of why that is. Over the Garden Wall, Hard Times at Huskin B. Because why not? If you haven't seen it yet, Over the Garden Wall is a dark, fantasy, mystery miniseries from Cartoon Network that still manages to be funny and adorable. Also horrifying and kinda messed up. Yes, true, with its horror influences, it seems like more of a Halloween special. After all, the penultimate episode takes place on Halloween. But that's actually the point. That episode is meant to be a recent flashback, meaning the rest of the series takes place during the weeks between Halloween and Thanksgiving. And more so, it looks it. This show feels like the time of year around Thanksgiving. It breathes fall. And even if that can be refuted in certain episodes, it's certainly the case for Hard Times at Huskin B, where Wirt, Greg, and Beatrice walk through a farming town of sentient harvest dolls, led by a creepy floating pumpkin head. And hey, look, turkeys! See? It totally counts. Who cares why they're being forced to dig up skeletons in a cornfield? This is a great standalone episode, but still I'd recommend seeing the series as a whole. And while it's perfect for that transition time between Halloween and Thanksgiving, Over the Garden Wall is just awesome, and everyone should be watching it anytime anyway. And the best animated special to watch at Thanksgiving time is Fantastic Mr. Fox. If live action movies set at Thanksgiving are pretty rare, I guess because that weekend is already filled up with blockbusters, then Thanksgiving animated movies are even rarer. In fact, the only well-known Thanksgiving-related animated feature was the 2013 Freebirds, where turkeys went back in time to stop turkeys from being the main course at the first Thanksgiving. Well, that should be easy considering they technically weren't. But aside from a surprisingly sympathetic turn from Woody Harrelson's character, this movie is not very good, so I'm not going to advocate it. But I will endorse Wes Anderson's Fantastic Mr. Fox from 2009, the greatest year for animation ever. Oh, sure, there's no mention of Thanksgiving in particular, but it does have a dinner scene that lasts for about 3 minutes. And the story mainly focuses on Mr. Fox's compulsion to steal birds from farmers, and it certainly has its share of family struggles. However, most evidently, if Over the Garden Wall feels like fall, Fantastic Mr. Fox is saturated in it. The colors, the natural setting, the farms, the animals, the food. And aside from that, it's just a very good film. It's a heist comedy, it's a family drama, it's a hubris cautionary tale. Though granted, it does have a stronger indie feel than many might be used to in an animated film. If you've never seen a Wes Anderson film before, get ready for a lot of naturally quippy dialogue, eccentric characters, quirky music, and a lot of camera pans. So Animaniacs, what do you guys like to watch around Thanksgiving, even if it has nothing to do with Thanksgiving at all? Comment, like, subscribe, etc., and go to my Patreon Patreon to vote for what videos I do in December. Happy holidays, Animaniacs!